Okay, so let's start out with just kind of filling some blanks, kind of talking about it. Factor by grouping is actually very similar to GCF. Okay, it's very similar to finding, factoring out a common, we'll say number. Okay, you could put factor there, or a GCF. Okay, in order to use grouping, though, guess how many terms we have to have? 4 terms. Okay, we have to have 4 terms. Okay, when you're doing this, before you start the grouping process, you have to check for a GCF first. Okay, here's how it goes. Okay, if we have 4 terms, we're going to take the first 2 and we're going to group them, and then we're going to take the second 2 terms and we're going to group those. And we'll pull out a GCF from each group. Okay? Then, when we pull out the GCF from both groups, we will have parentheses. Okay? Whatever's in those parentheses has to be exactly the same thing. Okay? Has to be exactly the same. If you are a person that likes to highlight things, today would be a good day to highlight things. So if you want to do that, you can. If you don't, you are totally fine not to. Okay, I'll show you a different method. So we're going to start by going through the steps here. Okay, I wrote down steps. It says make sure your polynomial is in standard form. What does standard form mean? In order. What has to be in order? The exponent. It has to go from highest to lowest. So we go from 3, 2, 1, and then our regular number. We're good. Step 2. Let me check off. Step 2. Make 2 groups. Put parentheses around the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. So if you have a highlighter, you can do a highlight instead of parentheses. Okay? So if you want to, you can highlight those here and then do a different color for your second. Okay? You can do it however you want. Okay? So we put our parentheses around or we highlight. Step 3, find and factor out the GCF for the first group. This is our first group. So just looking at my yellow guy up here, what's the GCF of that group? X squared. Okay? So you're going to take out an x squared. Okay, what's left inside those parentheses? 1x plus 2. Are we tracking?
Yes.
Okay. Do not pull that out of the second parentheses. We have not got to the second parentheses yet. You with me? Okay. We did our GCF of our first group. Find and factor out the GCF for the second group. Note, look at the third term to decide if your GCF should be positive or negative. Okay? So look at this term. Okay? You have to make sure that you put a sign right here. It has to be plus or a minus. Okay? So if we look, what's our GCF? 5. We're going to put a positive 5. Again, I'm going to say it. You have to put a sign there. Either a positive or a negative. Okay? What's left in my parentheses? Okay. Do you remember when I said that the parentheses need to be the same?
Yes.
Are our parentheses the same? Okay. If you do your problem right, that happens every single time. So you know if you're doing these kind of questions right, if you get the same parentheses. If you don't, you're not doing it right. Don't force it either. Some people will just say, oh, it should be 2. No. Okay. Make sure you're getting that right GCF. Okay. So parentheses are the same. It says rewrite. Now, when we rewrite it, here's how I rewrite it. Okay. You can do it a little bit differently if you want to. I look at what is on the, do a different color. What is on the outside? So here, I have an x squared and a plus 5 that's kind of hanging out outside the parentheses. Do you see it? We're going to take those two pieces that don't have a pair, and we're going to put them together. Okay? So we have x squared plus 5 as one of our parentheses, because we took the two outsides and we put them together. Tracking on that?
Yes.
Okay? And then our second set of parentheses is the x plus 2. We only write it one time. Okay? That is our final answer. Okay? We're going to check it with the distributive property to make sure that it's right. Okay, so if I do x squared times x, what do I get? Good. X squared times 2. X squared times 2. 2x squared. 5 times x. And then 5 times 2. Is that what we started with? Perfect. We know that it's right. Okay. Good?
Yeah.
All right, let's do the next one. Okay, what's my first step? Group. Okay, group the first two, group the second two. What's my next step? Greatest common factor of the whole thing?
No, the factor.
No, just the first set. What's my GCF of my first set? 5x squared. What do I have left? X minus 4. Questions on that? Okay, what's my next step? Pull out a negative 3. Why do I need to pull out a negative 3?
Because that was used to read the signs.
Yes. Okay. You're going to have to make sure that your signs work. Okay. So if I pull out a negative 3 here, does that change that to a positive x? Yeah, because negative 3 divided by negative 3 would be a positive 1, okay, which would be in front of my x. And then what if I pull a negative 3 out of a positive 12? Right, because remember, we're dividing. When we say we're pulling it out, we're dividing by it, okay? So minus 4. Are parentheses the same?
Yes.
Yeah. What if I would have pulled out a positive 3?
It would have made a positive 4.
We would have had a negative x plus 4 on the inside, and that's not the same thing. Okay, so that's why it does matter what sign you use. All right, now, what's my next step?
Combine the outside.
Yes, okay, right here, we take the outsides. So I have 5x squared minus 3. That becomes my first parenthesis. Okay, what becomes my second parenthesis? Yep. We only write it one time. Okay, now to check our answer, okay, we do 5x squared times x, which is 5x cubed, 5x squared times negative 4. What's that? And then negative 3 times x? Negative 3 times negative 4. Is that the same thing?
Yeah.
Looks good. What questions do you have for me? Okay. All right, let's go ahead. Ooh, this looks a little bit different. Something else going on here. What's new here?
Well, I don't like it.
Yeah, now we have two variables. Okay. Don't get overwhelmed. It's going to be fine.
I don't like it.
Okay, so take a look at the first group. Is there something common in that first group? A 1 and an x, right? Both terms have an x in them. So pull out an x. Okay, so when I pull an x out of this 3x squared, 3x cubed, what do I have left? 3x squared. What happens when I take an x out of 2xy? I have plus 2y. Is there a common term between negative 15x squared and negative 10y? negative 5. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Okay, so you pull out a negative 5. What's negative 15x squared divided by negative 5? 3x squared. What's negative 10y divided by negative 5?
Negative 2y.
Not negative, plus 2y. Are our parentheses the same? Look at that. Okay. So, we look at our outsides. That makes our first parenthesis. And then our second parenthesis is the part that we had in the parentheses.
I
think the only hard part is the first part.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Like the main part.
The main part.
And just put the stuff together.
Oh,
Yeah, the only part that's hard is finding what the GCF is and then
Literally the
everything
problem
else.
itself.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, group those first two terms and group those second two terms. What's common in our first set?
I know, I meant cube.
X cubed. Good.
Oh, line number 4. Oh.
Okay. What happens when I take x cubed out of x to the 4th? I have an x left. What about when I pull an x cubed out of 12x cubed?
12.
Just positive 12.
Oh,
Okay, what's our next GCF?
Positive 4x.
Positive 4x. So we should have an x left there, yes? And then what's 48 divided by 4? 12. And our x's cancel. Parentheses the same?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, now, Mrs. Crassa forgot something.
oh my.
There was a GCF at the beginning of this.
Don't even.
Look at the original problem. What was the GCF of the original problem? Yeah. Okay. So, this is a good learning experience. Okay, I really did forget it, but it's okay. It's okay. Here's how do you think? Can anybody see how I know, other than looking at the first set? Can anybody see how I know that I forgot to take out a GCF? Look at this, right here.
Oh, they're all equal.
I can take a GCF out of that. There's an X that I can pull out there. Do you see it?
Yeah.
So guess what? If you forget,
Keep going.
just do it right then. Do it at the very end. That's okay. Okay? I can take this, okay, and I can pull out an X, and then I have X squared plus 4 left.
What's the other one? I'm so confused.
I don't know.
Okay. Right here, what's my GCF?
Okay, I get it. I get it.
What, right here, what's my GCF? X. Okay? So I pull that out. X cubed. If I take out an X, I have an X squared left. If I take an X out of here, I have a 4. Okay? So I just forgot to take the GCF out at the beginning. If you notice it at the end, you can still take it out. Okay. Yeah.
So you just leave the other parentheses.
You what?
You leave the other parentheses alone.
Yeah, the other parentheses is good. Yeah. Yep. It's probably easier to find that GCF at the beginning, but I just forgot it. Okay, number 5. This is a challenge. Okay, but it's not that hard. It's super easy. Okay, is there a GCF here? Yes, 9. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pull a 9 out. So we're going to divide everything by 9. Okay, 18x cubed divided by 9, what do I have left? 2x cubed. Here, my 9's cancel, so I have a negative x squared. Here, negative 18 divided by 9. Negative 2. We keep our x, because it didn't go anywhere, and then 9 divided by 9 is 1.
a way to do that like faster? Like, is there a way you can do that with faster too?
What do you mean?
Oh, what
What do you mean?
like doing the faster thing, like the mean, like putting the prices on the first two and the last.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do now.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay, so put your parentheses in.
oh my god.
Okay? Now, here's what I'm going to have you do. If you factor out a GCF at the very beginning, I would use brackets and put your GCF outside of it so you don't forget. Okay. Woo, we're almost done. What is the GCF of my first set of parentheses? X squared. What do I have left? 2x. Okay, I'm not going to be teaching to two people. Pay attention, take notes. We're almost done. This is our last question together, okay? All right, 2x minus 1. Good. What's our GCF here?
Negative, no, it'd be -1.
1, but if we just pull out a 1, let's say we pull out a positive 1. I would have negative 2x plus 1 left. Right? It doesn't change it. Is that the same?
No, so that's to be a negative.
I need to pull out a negative 1.
Oh,
Okay, so let's rewrite. Okay, what's my first parentheses?
X squared minus
Yep. What's my second? Yep. And then my 9 has to drop down to the.
that was crazy.
Yeah, that's count. That's a lot. Okay.
So like, will that be like their role?
It's just a lot of oh good, I'm not trying to do that.
Go ahead and work at the practice. Okay, the solutions are at the bottom.
Oh.
So, yeah, but then you pull out the 9 right there. So you can pull out 9 right there. Yeah,